I'm your host, Tim Curley, and I'm joined by my
I like it. No, keep it.
Beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy.
Welcome back to the Go to Hell podcast. Strong opinions weekly held about Christianity, the church, and beer. I'm your host, Tim Curley, and I'm joined by my
I like it. No, keep it.
I'm joined by my co-host, Colton Pierce. Colton, how are you doing?
I'm doing blah, blah, blah. Tired. I'm tired. It's been a long week. I think, actually, I was going to say this to you earlier, and I think it's really good. I just started watching Welcome to Wrexham last night, and one of the owners, it's Rob, right?
Yes, Rob Mahoney.
I can't even.
Rob something.
Insert Philadelphian last name there.
Yeah.
He talks about how when the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl, that's one of the most. He puts it up there as like one of the top 5 moments of his life. It's like goes with being my kids being born, my getting married to my wife and all that kind of stuff, because of what it means to this community. He's like, it's not about the team or anything like that. It's about what it means for the community and being a part of that community, people that have supported them for so long and been a part of that. That's a huge thing for him. And so this week, we had a rivalry game for water polo, and it's high school sports, But, in fresh perspective, we sit there and we talk about, high school sports don't necessarily mean anything and that kind of stuff. And especially when you're talking about water polo, it's not meaning as much as maybe, say, the football team or anything like that. But for some people, that's all they have, right? It's they don't have the ability. Some people in our town and that I work in, they're never ever going to ride up an escalator. They've never been inside an elevator. They've never been out of. They don't know what cities look like. The pool that they know that's it. They may sometimes go to the ocean or something like that, but sometimes they can't afford it. So, being a part of those sports programs and they may never ever see a professional sports game. So that rivalry means something to those people that that's their town and that's what they're a part of. And so we got to play that on Thursday night, and I thought I was going to get burnt at the stake if we lost. It was cutthroat. It was brutal. We finished game time tied at 8-8. So we had to go to double overtime, and we ended up winning 11-8. So shut them out. And it's been tough. It's tough to go to that overtime. There's a lot of stress.
Oh yeah.
I had parents yelling at me. I had kids yelling at me during the game. They were stressed. And it's only going to get more stressful. We've got playoffs this week, so just trying my best to stay calm and do my best, and not let things get to me or anything like that. So I'm good. I just feel exhausted from the stress that I'm under at this point. We had, and that wasn't our only double overtime game this week. We had another one on Tuesday. It's just crazy. Like as a coach, you don't think about it too much. If I wouldn't have thought that it would have been so taxing on my body to go through that this week and then turn around and be ready for playoffs on Tuesday. But it's taxing. Like I'm just exhausted and I'm just thinking. I go to sleep and I'm thinking of X's and O's on a whiteboard.
Yeah.
So it's just tough, but it's good. I'm here and I'm having a good time. So
when I coached high school football, there was a year we made the playoffs. It was one of the, I think it was wasn't the last year I coached. It was the second or third to last year I coached. We went to playoffs and we went to 8 overtimes. And the defense I was coaching did not stop the other side. Like both sides just kept scoring, and the more it went on, I just felt worse and worse. Like I can't get a stop here.
I know.
By the time we got to 8, I was like, I don't want this job anymore. This is so terrible. I feel like I'm letting everybody down. So it does get stressful. But the kids, if you don't care, then kids sense that, and then they got no reason to care if coach doesn't care. Of course, some kids don't care even if coach does care. So, but
yeah, it's tough. I even had a game. We played a game 2 weeks ago, and we were really close at the end of the first quarter. We were actually up, and then the other team went on like a 8 or 9 goal run on us after that, and I could not do anything within my power to get my boys back on track or to make them want to finish that game and not give up or anything like that. It was brutal and defeating, and I just felt like I was not equipped as a coach to be able to deal with that situation. I felt sick to my stomach going home. I just was like, I feel like I failed as a coach. I don't know what I could have done. I don't know. I don't know. They were down. I couldn't get anything back on the rails, and it was just really tough for us and for me. It was just, luckily the boys the next day, they were right as rain, but that particular night it was tough.
Yeah.
So, yeah, coaching, it's not an easy job. There's to quote the guy from Wrexham, because I watched it last night, there's 3 things you're guaranteed as a coach is you get hired, you pay your taxes, and you get sacked. And I'm like, oh man, when's it coming for me? They don't do that in high school sports. They usually just wait till you are like, yeah, this is probably a good time to leave. How are you?
I'm fine. Nothing new this week.
No comment from Colton. All right, what are we drinking tonight?
The beer number 1 is Pliny the Younger.
Pliny the Younger, ladies and gentlemen.
Colton had a bottle saved.
I did. I think it's great that we're having it on the show.
It's aged well.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're having it on the show because
this is better than I remember. Maybe I just was
just so we're clear. I had it 5 nights ago, and this is better than it was 5 nights ago. So
this is really good.
Yeah, it's really tasty. So again, for those of you guys that don't know, this is a beer that we go. It's only available for 2 weeks out of the year. We go and do our beer trip up there. It's considered the best triple IPA in the world. Again, that's up for debate if you're willing to debate it or whatever. But it is a treat. The reason why it's considered the best triple IPA in the world is that it doesn't taste anything like a triple. So you're not going there and expecting the typical triple flavors where it's really dense, it's really alcohol heavy or anything like that. It's really smooth. And actually, that is where Tim and I, when we're saying that it's aged well and it's better than we remember, is because this year they decided to dry hop it instead. And we all at the table, we all agreed that it's good, but it wasn't as good as years past.
Yeah, and I was a little harsher on it than everybody else was, but it was still enjoyable.
It's enjoyable, but
this is better.
Yes.
So I don't know if we got a different batch or what, but this is really tasty. And just to what you were saying, if you don't know much, you've been listening all this time, you still don't know much about IPAs. Triple IPAs. Sierra Nevada has one, I think, called the Hopinator, something like that. It's like 13% triple IPA, and the consistency of it is thick. And unfortunately, if you don't drink it, it's better cold. which puts you in quite a conundrum because then you want to drink it faster, and drinking a 13% beer, even if it's 8 ounces, because they only pour it in 8 ounces if you get it at Sierra Nevada. I think you can still get a full... I think you can buy a bomber of it, but of course it's expected you're going to share it. But anyway, the consistency of it is thicker. It just feels like the density of the liquid is denser than your standard IPA. And again, the warmer it gets, the denser it gets. And like you said, it has a sweet flavor, and that sweet flavor is just from the level of alcohol that's in the beer. So I don't mind that one, but this one's trouble. There's a reason why they limit the number you can drink at there.
You can have
partially because they want to share and have enough for everybody who's showing up over the 2 or 3 weeks, but it's also because you can't drink 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, and you only get a 10-ounce glass, and it's 10.25% alcohol. And here's the thing, is that, so we said that it's lighter than triple IPAs. It's lighter than most double IPAs.
Correct.
Like,
it's lighter than the double IPA we have on a weekly basis at our favorite brewery in
and maybe some of you are like, okay, well, aren't you drinking IPAs for this particular flavor? Or maybe you like it that way and that kind of stuff. Yes. But to have the 10.2 and have it taste like it's like a 6 to a 7% is insane. It's just so light on the palate. It's delicious. They really have a genius invention with this beer. Whoever came up with it at Russian River, you did a phenomenal job. Are you looking for an elder? Oh no, you found another triple IPA?
No, I got a story to tell.
Oh, so it's delicious, and this is an award-winning beer. There's nothing to say about it other than that.
So you're still kind of in baby duty. You're hoping to get back to Kauai's on Fridays for a beer.
Yeah.
On the way home, maybe next week or in the next couple weeks. So 2-3 episodes ago, I think we still have not dropped that episode. We shared a beer called Hoppin' on the One. It was a collab. It is a collab between Belching Beaver and Altamont Brewing Company.
With the Nelson hops, right?
With the New Zealand hops. And you and I both did not like it. We drank it on the show for the first time. Did not like it. And I had a 4-pack. And so you asked me what I was going to do with the other 2 cans. So I took them down to Kauai yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
So I opened up 1 can at the table with our usual group of people, and they were all just disgusted by it. We didn't even get through the entire can. They're like, nope, you can go throw that in the trash or something. So I took either that can or the second can into the main room of the tap room. And I handed it off to some of our mutual friends, one of which is Wes, who's a fire chief in Tulare. And I handed him the can and said, hey, try this. And just was like, hey, yeah. And so I'm sure they were all expecting, like, this is spectacular. Come back over, and it's been long enough at the other conversations that started at our table that I've forgotten that I've foisted this can of ass onto other people. And sorry, folks, but I gotta actually say what it says to tell the full humor of it. Wes shows up all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, doesn't even like wait for our conversation to stop, and says, "What the fuck is that? That tastes like gasoline and burnt tires." He was angry. He was so angry. And I said, oh, you didn't like that? He goes, no. Why would you give that to somebody else? And I said, because I already had a can and I don't want to drink anymore. His wife was like, I could smell it from here. She's like 2 people over, and she's like, I can smell it from here. It smelled terrible. So I spent the next 2 hours foisting that on any of the regulars I could find. I gave it to John. I gave it to Sonny, and everyone was like, this is terrible.
Oh, man. It's like the one time that Kauea decided to make a pickle beer. Remember that?
Yes.
And then we asked Nolan to just take a shot of it. He was so trusting.
So that provided a lot of humor for my day yesterday.
That's awesome. Sorry, Nolan, about the pickle beer. Our buddy Nolan hates pickles, and they brewed a pickle beer one night. And they brought us out tasters, and they were like, the bartender at the time was like, Josh, right? It was Josh.
Yeah.
And Josh comes over and he brings us all tasters, and he's like, here, taste this. And Josh actually sometimes gives us tasters,
Right.
And so he brings it over, and I take a smell of it, and I was like, no. I was like, no, whatever that is, I'm not putting it in my mouth. And I was like, that has a very, very distinct smell. Like, I was like, I know that smell. And like, it took me like probably like a couple minutes, and Josh is like looking at us, and he's like, he's waiting for Eric or Tim to try it. And did you end up trying it or
no? Because once I think I waited out long enough, and then once he said pickles, I'm like, I can't.
And
I
was like,
I hate pickles.
I waited, and then I was like, it's pickles. It's pickle juice. You have pickles in this. And he was like, yeah, you got it. And I was like, no, I'm not drinking that. That's disgusting. And so we like poured it all, like we poured our 3 tasters into like one glass or something, and here comes Nolan, unsuspecting Nolan, walking up from his truck. He's like, doo, just had a long day's work, blah blah blah. And I say, hey, shoot this, and I hand him the thing, and he tosses it back, and he's like, oh, that's awful, why would you give that to me? And I was like, oh, it's pickles. And he's like, I hate pickles. And honestly, I had forgotten, and I do feel bad, Nolan, I really do. I did know that you hated pickles. And he was like, I'm going to go throw up. I'll be back. And literally like went and threw up behind I was like, ugh, that's terrible. So we've had some times like that at Kauea. So, but that's funny. Gasoline and burnt tires.
He was very adamant. And so, I think Eric verified one of the two. He's like, no, yeah, I could see the burnt tires or the gasoline. I think it was the burnt tires. Yeah, I could see the burnt tires. So. Of course, our friend Nick was a bit more nuanced, because no beer I think Nick's ever had is terrible. He was just like, yeah. Then he started explaining the brewing process as to why it tasted like that. They cooked the New Zealand hops too long, or they cooked the New Zealand hops period, which you don't normally do. Or
well, just so we're clear, tell people to stop doing that, because that's not the first time on a New Zealand hop that I've run across that flavor.
I said I'm basically over New Zealand hops, because it's kind of 50-50 on whether or not I like.
Yeah, I don't even want to try them anymore.
No.
If I see New Zealand on anything, or
because the only thing we've not liked at Dust Bowl also is heavy on New Zealand hops.
Yeah, but we've never had a problem with west of Nelson, right, or east of Nelson.
No, that one's done well. But I think there was another one they had.
And there's a couple
at the tap room.
There's a couple, but I got to be honest, it's not worth doing anymore.
No,
it's not worth the risk.
Flavor profile is just.
It's not worth the risk.
Burnt tires.
Yeah.
This, however, younger is not. So
no, delicious.
So we got Halloween this week.
Yeah, we do.
What are your thoughts on Halloween?
Well, wait, did you not want to talk about what we're listening to this week?
That's true.
To round off, our warm-ups.
Oh, boy. Am I listening to anything interesting? Well, what have you been listening to?
I just wanted to say what I listened to on my way over here, because it put me in a real good mood. Like I said, I've been really stressed. I think that sometimes there's songs or there's musicians that can take you out of funks and stuff. I think music has a really strong, powerful way of doing that. Whether it's nostalgia or maybe the message or whatever can make you do that stuff. And so, and honestly, to revisit our conversation that we had about music, I think sometimes that is that way for people with worship music, even if it's sitting there and it's just saying the same thing over and over again, and it's cheesy and that kind of stuff. If it spoke to you in a specific time or whatever, that song can have immense amount of power for you. And so the song that I listened to on the way over here was actually, it reminds me, and you know this, but every time I go fishing, I listen to John Denver. So I listen to Sunshine on My Shoulders on my way here, which is top 3 John Denver songs of all time. And again, it's 70 degrees outside. It's gorgeous. It's fall. It's a nice fall day. And I always listen to John Denver whenever I go fishing. And it's just simple times, simple stuff. And I actually, just so we're clear, I've decided to give up calling fishing for me. It's actually just casting.
Is that because of the lack of success, or because you throw the fish back?
110% is the lack of success. I don't think I caught a single fish last year. But just so and I went every weekend for like 3 or 4 months. And which is crazy because I've fished in this lake my entire life, and I've caught fish. But last year I was like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And like some people are determined when they go fishing. They're like, I'm gonna go and, I'm gonna fish until I catch 1 or 5 or whatever. Those are the people that maybe they're like, I gotta feed my kids, off of this fish. For me, it was a good opportunity. My wife and I talked about it where, she was like, go spend an hour or 2 at the lake. And so I'd go to the lake for an hour or 2. It's only about 20 minutes from my house, 25 minutes from my house. And so I'd go and I'd cast for about 20, 25 minutes, or not 20, 25 minutes. I'd go cast for about 2 hours. Never catched anything apparently. But it was good and I had a great time. I bring friends with me sometimes. Like I brought Eric, he read a book. I brought Alec, he'd fish with me. I brought my wife one time. And it was good. It's just, there's just something about it. Just sitting there by the lake, just casting your rod out and listening to John Denver, the whole while. So, just a simpler time, and it de-stresses me a lot. So it's great. But yeah. How about you, Tim? Listening to anything?
So I'm gonna kind of go. It's not the polar opposite of John Denver.
He's listening to death metal.
Yeah, that's why I would say it's not the polar opposite, because I can't stand death metal. But it's close. So we went to Kauai last night. Obviously, we've been talking about that last couple minutes. And then when we were done, our friends Eric and Connor and Andy, friend of the show, Andy, came over to my place to smoke some more cigars and drink some beer. And so I have speakers set up in the gazebo that we have in the backyard. So I've never asked Andy this, but he seems, his favorite music seems to be grunge. So I was like, what does everyone want to listen to? No one really said anything. Oh, no, that's not true. What does everyone want to listen to? And Eric said, Eurotrash Girl. So if you're not familiar with Eurotrash Girl, it's like this 8-minute song. When it originally came out on the album by the band Cracker, it was buried. It's like track 89 or something on the CD. So it's one of those things that if you don't leave the CD running, you never would find it. I don't even think it wasn't listed on the CD liner notes. Anyway, it's a fantastic song. Eric didn't know it existed until our beer marathon trip to San Diego, and I played it in the car, and he was like, this song's amazing. So I played that. Oh, and then Andy blew his mind by saying that the lead singer for Cracker is Camper Van Beethoven, which Eric did not know either. So anyway, so we played that, and then I proceeded, because Cracker came out about this a little bit after, but about the same time, I started playing grunge. So we were listening to grunge last night. Some Alice in Chains, some Mother Love Bone, some Jane's Addiction, Pearl Jam, etc., etc. So
that's awesome.
The dreary music of the 90s, the counter lever to the fun of hairband music. So, other than that, earlier in the week, I was listening kind of the same stuff I've been listening to recently. So, but that listened to that last night. So that was fun. All right, Halloween. Now we can get to Halloween.
Well, wait, hold on, one more time to break things up. Just because you said you were listening to the polar opposite of John Denver, and that just got my mind racing a little bit. Did you see Chad Smith do the cover of you know who Chad Smith is?
No.
The drummer for the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see him do the cover of the 30 Seconds to Mars song?
No.
Oh, so there's a channel which has a famous drummer on it. It's Brandon Toew, or Toew. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Tui? Sure. Touche. Stanley Touche. Touchy. It's Stanley Touchy.
Stanley Tucci.
Anyways, he has a thing where he gets famous drummers and he gets them to play, just to show their talent level. He gets them to listen to a song for the first time, and he has them play with it. And you'll see amazing stuff that comes from them, and you can see how really talented they are on the set and all that kind of stuff. And so Chad Smith's video kind of went viral because he just listened to the song for probably he listened to this 30 Seconds to Mars song for about 20 seconds, and then he goes into it, and he plays it like pretty spot on to exactly what it is. But Megadeth, which is a band, had a drummer come on to the show, and he was asked to play the Killers' Mr. Brightside.
Oh.
And what's crazy is that he did a halftime breakdown instead. So if you listen to it, it's kind of weird, but I still think I like the original better, but there's this really kind of fun element that he just kind of does this halftime breakdown during, he doesn't do it for the chorus. So he's pretty much on beat for the chorus for normal Mr. Brightside, but during the verses, he's doing a halftime breakdown. And it's kind of fun to see just kind of this different style. And again, they're listening to the song, but it has no drum track. And so he's doing the whole thing, and he had never listened to that song before, and it's a lot of fun. I'd highly recommend checking out his channel or anything. And again, this is just something that just went on a tangent just based off of the fact that you said that you were listening to something other than or the complete opposite of John Denver. And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, because there was something that I was thinking about where I was like, I think that you would enjoy some of these videos.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So if you're really interested in music, and I think drummers are extremely intelligent, that they're musical geniuses with the way that they're able to do.
They are, because a lot of the way they record music in the studios, they have to lay down the track. You know, we hear the finished product.
Yes,
they lay down the drums they just play the drums,
right?
And then everyone else comes in and follows up with the bass and the guitar, and that always just seems counterintuitive to me. I actually prefer when the whole band plays like a live jam session in the studio, but that's just not how they do it. I'm sure there's very good reasons why. They can probably get better sound that way and whatnot. But yeah, just to sit there and be like, okay, we're going to play this song, so lay down the drums.
Yeah. And it's great. And actually what's really cool about the Megadeth one, when you're seeing it, he listens to the song all the way through the first time, and he's taking notes. He's listening for build-ups, he's listening for whatever, and he's taking notes of how it is. And if you watch the Chad Smith one, he'll be like, oh, it's in 3. He's like, it's in 3. That's weird. And so he starts going right after. He's like, okay, it's in 3. And what's crazy is that Chad Smith's is so cool because, again, you know that it's his first time listening to this song. He has no idea. Like, even when he's done, they're like, have you ever listened to that song before? And he's like, no, it's like some emo shit or something. I have no idea what that is. But he knows when the buildups are happening. Like, it's almost like instinctive, where he's just like, all right, the way the singer is about to go, the way the guitars are going, like, and then, you know, when it gets quiet, he brings it down and stuff, but like right on time. And it's just insane for somebody to be able to do that on the first try. It's so cool. Highly recommend checking out. Chad Smith's video went way more viral than the Megadeth drummers did, but it's still kind of this fun thing to go see.
There's a funny legend in rock music. The band Joy Division, which then became New Order. I think at this point they were New Order. Were recording in Manchester, and they had this very eclectic but genius producer.
Yeah.
And he could not, whatever sound he had in his mind for the drums, could not get in the studio. So he takes the drummer up onto the roof of the studio building and sets up a microphone, because I think he wanted like a really flat sound. And again, in a studio, it's hard to get. And he didn't want it like manufactured. So he just puts him up there and he's like, just start playing. He's like, you just want me to play? Yeah, just play. And they forgot about it. Supposedly he just stayed up there playing drums for hours recording, and they forgot about him downstairs.
That's awesome. Well, actually, I know who that producer is. And I remember his famous line of, he came out and he was like, I got a fever. And the only prescription is more cowbell. Also, Jimmy Fallon, if you ever listen to this podcast someday, I want you to know, you cannot hold a straight face to save your life.
He's so bad at holding a straight face that after a while, I was like, is this real? You can't be this earnest and so nice. It's just, he's so terrible.
He's so terrible. I'm like, how? I mean, he's very, he can do stuff off the cuff 100%. Right. And that's why he's able to do that. But I think that most of the time in most of his skits that he had on SNL was people were laughing at the fact that he was laughing more than they were laughing at the sketch. He literally would have to hide. You know who's also really bad at it too, though, is, although he's not on there anymore, was Pete Davidson.
Oh, okay.
Pete Davidson would always, he's like, he can't keep it together. So both of those guys, who are both really famous from SNL, they could not laugh. And, well, to Jimmy's credit, though, he did have to deal with Will Ferrell the entire time. Because Will Ferrell would target Jimmy.
Well, that's what happens. That's what happens is once they know there's a snickerer, then there's like a script, and then there's not a script, and I'm going to do whatever I have to get you to lose it on live television. The Carol Burnett show had that problem. Carol Burnett and Harvey Korman could easily lose it, and there was a third guy, damn it, I can't remember his name, and he was genuinely just hilarious, but he was also very good at, like, once he knew he had him, then he would just take it to, like, not to 10, but like 12, just so they would lose it in the skit.
That's why I love the Casual Friday skit from SNL. Just he shows up in like that American thong or whatever. Oh my gosh! Or there's the one where they're like fashionistas or something. The Jimmy Fallon and I can't remember who the other guy was that was with him. And they're already cracking up throughout the entire skit with the way that they're acting. And then Will Ferrell rides in on this granny, little motorbike thingy onto the stage and just cruises up and then just stands up. And literally Jimmy Fallon cannot handle it.
So back when Ferrell was on, there was a guy, who's the guy that he did It was a short Chris Kattan. Chris Kattan, that's who it was. When Chris Kattan was on there, Chris Kattan had
You're talking about the Night of the Roxbury Crew, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris Kattan had a character where he played like a human monkey, and it was the most absurd character. It was so dumb.
Please don't tell me he did blackface for this.
No, he did no blackface, but he was very adept at taking an apple in his mouth and then like eating it. Like eating a lot of the apple to where half of it's going in his mouth, but the other pieces are like flying around. And then he'd like discard the apple really quickly. And then he'd always like smack his hands together and make some strange, funny noise. But that skit just basically became like, what famous person can we have endure this stupid skit and see how long they until? And Clara Danes was on. I think it was her and Will Ferrell, and Catan like starts doing it and is getting like apple all over both of them. And not only does Clara Danes lose it, but Will Ferrell actually loses it too.
That's impressive. That's impressive because that guy like barely breaks.
Yeah.
All right, we can get on to Halloween now.
Halloween.
Well, wait, hold on. I gotta go get a beer. Where are you at? I want you to
finish this.
I want you. No. Don't rush it. I had started drinking from the second I poured it. So, are there Coors Banquets in the fridge?
There's a plethora out there. There's a smorgasbord of beer out there. Pick whatever.
Just gonna go with a nice oak aged lager from Oktoberfest from Firestone. Something nice and light before we move on to our West Coast IPA from AleSmith after this. So, all right, All Hallows Eve.
All Hallows Eve. I thought about doing some research about the holiday, but I don't really give a damn. What are your thoughts about Halloween? I'm ambivalent. I have mixed thoughts about Halloween. Should I go first and then you react to what I have to say?
I think that I'll say something just before you get started. There is something to celebrate on Halloween. If for any Christians out there that think that there's nothing to celebrate, and you think that it's just a pagan holiday.
Interesting.
Yeah. It is on Halloween that Martin Luther nails his 99 Theses to the door.
Interesting.
It is on Halloween that he does that. So that is the Protestant split. So if from the Catholic Church, it's
which
not
he did not intend.
No. So if you are sitting there and you're thinking like, oh, so there's divisiveness from this. No, there were changes that needed to happen to the Catholic Church.
Correct.
Where people were saying that kids were guaranteed salvation by how much money their parents gave to the church kind of stuff, where you'd be like, what? No, that's not true. And I was like, yes, you're absolutely right. That's not biblically true.
There was that. There was rich people being able to wash away their sins, whether it be adultery or whatever, with indulgences. There was just general bastardizations of the faith that had happened after.
Shit that Jesus would have literally flipped tables for.
Correct. And you and I would have both agreed that the same has happened to the Protestant church over half a millennia.
Right. So 1,000 years ago, believe it or not, that is something that you can sit there and say, this happened and it's worth celebrating.
Not 1,000 years.
No.
500 years.
500 years. There we go. I was like, sorry. That is something to sit there and say, oh, well, that's a good thing that happens on Halloween. And so you can be a part of it and you can dress up and celebrate for that. All right, go ahead, Tim.
All right. I want to just stipulate. I think I've said this before. One of my frustrations with modern society, and when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that this is only something that modern society deals with. It might have been something that just has kind of always been a thing, but I would say in particular, I think it's gotten worse. We are not allowed to be of two minds on issues. We're either all in on one or the other. We expect Puritanism on issues. So I'm of two minds on Halloween. When I was a kid, Halloween was pretty much just the kids' holiday. There weren't adult costume parties. There weren't any of that. So, and I wish it would go back to that. I don't like that it's been taken over by adults. When I still lived in LA, in Los Angeles, in LA, I, even as a single guy, I got really tired of Halloween being the night where girls could dress up like Playboy bunnies or some kind of slutty thing and be like, oh, this is my night to do that. It's like either don't dress like a tramp or do. So I don't like that adults have taken over the holiday. I also don't like that it's become. I think it's leaned a lot into the, dare I say, kind of demonic side of the world. It's gotten a little too much into the ghosts and all that kind of more than it used to be, like when it was kids. So I'm not thrilled with the holiday. Now, that said, I have just said that I'm not thrilled with adults celebrating it. Call me a hypocrite. I have gone to my wife and I have been to adult costume parties, and we've done that kind of thing, and I don't begrudge anybody who does. I don't lose any sleep at night when I haven't been invited to a party in a couple of years, because the party we were going to was getting a little risque for us. But so I'm not a big fan of it. That said, my wife and I have bought a shit ton of candy. And we bought a shit ton of candy to take to our church for the trunk or treat thing they're going to do. And she and I are going to sit on our front lawn on Tuesday night when there's Halloween and give out a ton of candy very happily to kids, because I think that's all it should be. I don't do decorations for Halloween, either inside the house or outside of the house. I think that's part of it. It's become like I guess if I'm really being honest, what bugs me is it's like become a competition for Christmas. And I'm uneasy with that. And maybe I shouldn't. But I do. Like when I see the neighbors who I know go all in for Halloween stuff on their yard. There's like $500 worth of, scary stuff on the front yard. And I know when Christmas comes around, there's nothing out there. That bothers me. It doesn't bother me enough to go tell them they're terrible people or anything, but it's just like that's kind of weird. But even the ones who go all in for Halloween and they also go all in for Christmas, it's just like, I don't know. As a Christian, I just don't think that we should be celebrating the two as much as we are. And I know part of this is just Madison Avenue selling holidays, because that is a thing. Valentine's Day has become a thing because Madison Avenue sold it. Frankly, sorry, moms, so is Mother's Day. It's another excuse to sell Christmas cards and candy for candy companies and sell gifts that people normally wouldn't buy. We've just, as Americans, we've created a thing where like every 2 months we have to go all out and spend money like it's Christmas. And so, I don't know. So, not a big fan of Halloween. I could take it or leave it.
So for me, I think I've always grown up. I mean, Mean Girls came out when I was 7, 8.
Oh yeah.
In Mean Girls, one of the quotes from Lindsay Lohan is, Halloween is the one night a year where girls can dress up like sluts and not be judged.
Exactly. That's right.
And she says the hardcore girls just wear lingerie. And, which also, just so we're clear,
I forgot about that quote.
I
that whole part of that movie.
100% think that maybe not a teenage. I think that there is a lot that teenage girls could learn from watching the movie Mean Girls.
I totally agree.
I think there is a lot to learn from watching that movie, because I think it is a picture perfect depiction of kind of the status symbol that go. You could sit there and say, well, the Breakfast Club does that, or you could say whatever does this.
Oh, I think the Breakfast Club does as well.
Yeah, 100%.
It's different. It's a different picture of America. Breakfast Club is about how kids in the 80s had absent parents. Every one of those kids has an absent parent, whether it be the two poor kids, the two middle class kids, and the two rich kids. Their parents are all either absent or, in the case of the Estevez kid, Was it? No, it wasn't Estevez. Yeah, it was Emilio Estevez. His dad's like, too much into wrestling. But most of the other kids, just like mom and dad, just, they're not around. They provide, like for the rich, for like Molly Ringwald, they provide. She's got a nice car. She's got all the clothes she wants to wear.
Yeah.
But they're not around.
Yeah. And like I said, I think that that's a good depiction. I think that 16 Candles has a lot to say about
all of the John Hughes films, all of the John Hughes comedies at their heart are about kids with absent parents. Like Ferris Bueller, John Hughes film. Parents are in the movie, but the depiction of the parents is they're both dumb shits who have no idea what's going on with both their son and daughter, even though they're around. They're just oblivious to what actually is going on. So yes.
Actually, it's Ferris Bueller's Day Off that is the inspiration for Phineas and Ferb, for anybody that didn't know.
Really? I didn't know that.
I don't know that for a fact, but they have the uptight sister who's always trying to rat on him and say that he's not trustworthy, and he's got this brother who's wild and crazy who just wants to go do fun things and whatever. Yeah. But
Mean Girls and Easy.
Oh, Easy A, 100%.
Easy A, I think
both of
those
are
two
phenomenal.
movies are those movies of this time.
Yeah, I think that those ones are ones that you can learn a lot from about the high school aspect of, and actually I like that they're told, well, I guess 16 Candles is told from a girl's perspective, but I really enjoyed that there's something to be said about Mean Girls and the message that it's trying to present, and the same thing to be said about Easy A. And so I think that every teenager should watch that. I think that every teenage girl should watch that with their mom. I think that that's something that they should do, where they just sit there and they watch it, and the mom can sit there and be like, yep. Yeah. It's like, this is how it is. This is the truth. This is reality. And what's crazy is that probably most of the girls, even if they watched it, they're like, it would go completely over their heads. But maybe 10 years down the line, they're like, oh my gosh, that's how it works. You know, that's the reality of it. And I think that there's things for guys to learn from those as well, right? Like Easy A especially, where I wish that there's something to be said about is that sex is a status symbol for guys, and that's a message that's very much presented in Easy A, where they are... where, there's, they're willing to pay for this and do all that kind of stuff to earn this status symbol kind of stuff. And yes, I'm not sitting there and thinking that was okay or whatever, but understanding that these are social norms that exist within the realms of high school, and honestly your early 20s and even your late 20s.
Yeah.
Right? Like these are things that mean things during those time periods. And so that's why when you were talking about girls dress up as sluts, I was like, so when I was growing up, that was already a thing. So Tim talked about it was a kid's holiday. By the time that I had grown up, and it had already been an adult holiday, right, for a while. And I stopped dressing up when I was a kid in the 4th grade. I just was over it. I think the Packers were playing the Vikings on Monday Night Football when I was in the 5th grade, and I was like, yeah, I'd rather do that. I'd rather watch that game than go and watch or then go and trick or treat.
Right.
So, and what was funny was my little sister was young, and my parents were like, okay. So they took my sister, who is older than me, and my little sister. They took my older sister and my little sister, and they took them trick or treating around the neighborhood, and I just stayed home and just watched football. And handed out candy to people who knocked on the door as a 5th grader. And you guys are like, maybe some of you who are listening to this are like, they just leave you at home or whatever. And it's like, I don't know. That's how it was in my neighborhood. So So I've always never been big on the dressing up. I'm not huge into a lot of that kind of stuff. It's just not a part of my personality. So I don't want to go buy costumes. I think I feel comfortable in my own skin. I don't want to dress up as somebody else or anything else. I've just never been attracted to that. I don't find fun in that or anything like that. So I'm kind of a Debbie Downer about that kind of stuff. If I ever go to a Halloween party or something, I'm usually wearing street clothes that I've modified, and I'll say, yeah, this is what I am. And people are like, you're lame. It's like, okay, but meanwhile, you're dressed as Adam Sandler. So I don't know what to do about that,
Right.
So I've never really been into it, but some people really enjoy it. They like being somebody other than themselves for the evening, something other than what they normally wear, and that's really great for them. And more power to you if that's what you like and that's what you're into. Okay, I think that I have no issues with that or anything. It's just not for me. Onto the issue of it being a consumeristic holiday. Or a consumer's holiday. Yeah, I think that's just holidays in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with Christmas.
Yeah, it's like Christmas is a consumer's holiday. I was like, we have no problem with you celebrating Christmas, but do you need all the crap on your lawn and all over your house? And do you need all the stuff in your house? Do you need to go and out buy gifts for other people? You got to have the better gift than other people do. Try to one up people on that kind of stuff. And don't sit there and tell me that it's for Jesus and you've got Santas all over your house. Like,
right.
I'm like, I don't really get that. Or reindeer or whatever your choice or topic is. Like, that's totally fine. I don't judge you for it, but I'm just saying, like, again, we've been over this, is I can't sit there and justify spending all that money on all that kind of stuff and feel okay. I have not bought a crap ton of candy. Since COVID, trick-or-treats really died down, and we don't really have anything in our area. My daughter is way too young to go trick-or-treating right now, so that's not something that we're looking to do. And plus, I've got a water polo game that day, so
that's right.
Yeah, we're not consumeristic about how my parents never decorated for it growing up. My wife, when we were married and my wife wanted to start decorating for things when we were moved out of my parents' house, and we were able to decorate for holidays, I told her, I was like, hey, I don't mind us decorating for Halloween, but actually what we decorate for is we just decorate for fall.
Right.
We don't decorate for Halloween.
Sure, because that leads into Thanksgiving and all that.
Yeah, so we do pumpkins around our house. Right. They're just, and not like jack-o'-lanterns or anything like that. They're just pumpkins, just gourds or whatever, just hanging around the house. It's just, we decorate for fall. We don't decorate for Halloween.
Yeah.
So we're still festive and in the mood, but we don't put giant spiders outside of our house. We don't try to scare anybody or anything like that. We just set it up. And it works out really well for us. And that's what I would prefer, personally, because it's just like and this kind of leads into your topic of, I don't really lean into the whole goblins and ghouls and, the demonic stuff or whatever, that people want to be a part of. I think that there's scary stuff out there. And I've never been into scary things. Like, I don't watch scary movies. You could sit there and be like, oh, this is, and I understand that there's people out there that love that stuff, and that's great. It's just not for me.
No, yeah.
And there was something funny when I had my honors kids. They all had to take these. I had them take book quizzes, where they had to. There's a website out there that has you take like a personality test for your books, for your book preferences. And I have lots of kids all over. There's like this true crime kind of stuff all throughout my classroom where, these kids are into scary stuff. They want to know who done it or whatever, or they want to see the blood and all that kind of stuff. And really for me, when I took the personality test, like all that stuff was, I'm really actually an adventure novelist. So my thing is, I want people to go out on an adventure and have a good time and, like all that kind of stuff and grow and develop as a group And so I know that about myself. I'm very much a happy person. And so I just don't lean into those dark things. I don't think it's worth my time to sit there and watch a movie for 2 hours and be scared. I'm like, and especially when there's no positive. I mean, there's positive messages at the end of Frankenstein for sure. Well, actually, I mean, it's pretty bleak. There's a message that we're supposed to learn from Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But there's this idea where it's just, and like I've watched scary movies. Some like occasionally, like friends are all like, "Oh, let's watch it," and I'm like, "What did we gain from this?" Like other than the fact that we were on edge. Like even when people are like, "I'm not scared," and I'm like, "Okay, you're not scared." But what was gained from watching this movie? Did we get a message from this? Or like there was one that I watched once where it was like the neighbors come over and just basically torture this couple, and they get away with it. Like I think one of the last scenes is like one of the guys who's been torturing him. The guy is already dead, and they're like sticking a knife into the girl, and she's like, "Why are you doing this to us?" And they're like, "Because we're bored." And then they like just walk down the street. Like that's it. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
I was like, why was this uncomfortable and unsettling for 2 hours just for this? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, wow,
that's just nihilistic.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, why would I sit there and watch that? That's not for me personally. Not for me. And you could sit there and say, well, everything in life doesn't have a happy ending. And I'm like, that's fair. I watched Saving Private Ryan. That doesn't have a happy ending, but well, and I don't want to watch it again, but I'd still,
but there's a redeeming,
right. Exactly. But there's
some lesson to be found or redeeming.
There's no redeeming from that. Like, as far as I can tell.
That's my problem with most of the horror movies is it's an excuse to get scared and I just, like you, I'm like, I don't feel I have no attraction of like having something jump out at me on television and there's just this primal reaction of like, and like, even though I know it's about to happen. And then two, I think it does.
Yeah, I don't enjoy that.
A couple episodes ago, we dealt with 2 episodes where we were dealing with the demonic and the spiritual world, and you and I were trying to do our best to admit that we don't talk about it a lot, but also admit that it's there. And this is one of those things where I very much do recognize that it's there, and I think the American obsession with the Saw movies and all the other horror movies is just, it's desensitizing us to the fact that no, this kind of level of depravity that's not somebody's got a chemical imbalance or a terrible childhood, like they're literally just evil people, maybe even also demonically possessed, where it desensitizes to that.
Well, and I heard stuff, and I mean, I've heard, and again, maybe I just can't get over my part of just like, I don't really like being scared. It's just not, it's not a feeling that I personally enjoy, because we had, because we had or because the Jordan Peele movies, the scary movies like Us, or right, it's Us, yeah. And what was the other one? Get Out? No.
Yeah,
Get Out. Those ones apparently have like a message to them and that kind of stuff, and so like I don't want to take away from that, but I'm just like, it's not something that I want to be a part of. Like I don't want to watch that. Like I can't get through it. I'm fully supportive of the messages that they have about the, with the African American community and all that kind of stuff that he was getting at, and that kind of stuff that I read about. I didn't watch nor try to experience that, because again, it's just not how I want a theme presented to me. Right. And I've read horror before. I read famous horror novels and that kind of stuff, but horror and fiction is completely different. Horror and fiction is a lot of, and I don't read true crime. I'm not trying to read that. I like trusting people.
Yeah.
No, I seriously, I told my wife, she was like, she would watch these. There's this girl who does true crime and like a makeup tutorial. And so my wife would be sitting there doing her makeup and she listens to this girl who would just talk about these horrible things that in reality, which I get that there are really messed up people out there in the world. But golly, if I heard that every day, I would not trust people.
Right.
I wouldn't trust to open my door to my house. You know, like I'd be afraid to open it with that kind of stuff. Like it's just insane where I'm like, I like to see the good in people because I think that that's what we're supposed to do. We need to trust people, and even if it goes poorly for us in that trust for people, it's still what we are called to do as Christians. And so I don't like not being able to trust people. And so my wife, again, that's what she listens to, and I'm like, I can't listen to that. That's gonna ruin me. And it's terrible. And my wife tells me things sometimes where I'm like, great, now I feel anxiety about that. And I was like, awesome. And things that I never even thought about before or whatever, where I'm like, okay, great. Now when you tell me that you're going to the grocery store, I'm afraid that somebody's going to follow you to your car and steal our child, you know, like, cause she was like, yeah, my sister got like a guy came up while she was putting her kids away at Target, and he came and like started knocking on the windows and tried to get into their car after she had put her kids away. And that was just in Tulare where we live. And I'm like, great. Now I feel really great about sending you to Target sometime with our kids. Like, I'm like, that's awesome. You know, and yes, I understand that those are realities, but it's just, it's so tough. I don't like hearing about that kind of stuff. It's just not for me. I don't want that ever. So.
My wife's been listening to some true crime stuff, and she finally had to stop because it was making it hard for her to sleep and some other things. So, and there was another story she was telling me. She was retelling me something she'd been listening on the way to and from work, and she was telling me this, like going on all the details. And we were driving to church to teach our financial class, and I at one point just said, that's enough. I don't want to hear anymore. This is just there's too much. I don't need to hear like that. There's this kind of stuff going on in the world.
Completely agree. Yeah, it's gross and atrocious. So I think that there are those elements of Halloween that I don't stand with. If you are possibly sitting there at home and you are thinking that you don't agree with Halloween and the activities that are conducted because you believe that it's a satanic holiday or something along those lines, because it was once a pagan holiday, just so we're clear, the Christian calendar, as far as all of the holidays that we follow, are all around pagan holidays.
Correct.
So, the Catholic Church originally decided what the dates of a lot of these holidays were because they wanted, their participants to not be participating in the pagan holiday that was currently going on, but also to coincide with it. So a lot of them were about, so like there's evidence that points to the fact that Jesus was not born on Christmas.
Correct.
There's evidence that points that he was born in the spring because the shepherds would not have been out when during that time, blah, 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 blah. There's lots of different stuff, and that is going on somewhere along our calendars as far as Christian holidays. And so if you're sitting there and saying that's satanic, it's like, okay, then go say that about Christmas. Go say that about, about a couple of different holidays. So, I think that parents should focus on not necessarily, I would discourage you from leaning into the ghouls and the goblins kind of thing, or the demonic kind of stuff.
Yeah. Be mindful of what your kids want to dress up as, or
yeah, 100%.
Decorations you put out if you want to do decorations.
100%. Also, like, understand that, I'm not saying like go through the history. I think that there are things that we can take back from historical perception. So if you're sitting there and you're like, okay, so the jack-o'-lantern, and you do enough history on it, and you're like, okay, this was something that witches would use to mark their house or whatever, was a carved pumpkin. that's okay. You can sit there and say, well, that's not what we're using it for. We're using it to be festive and have a good time. Just because some medicine woman from 300, 500 years ago decides to use this as something doesn't mean that that's what we use it for today. So I would say keep your mind open about that kind of stuff. Nobody is thinking that that's what it is, right? Like nobody is sitting there thinking that jack-o'-lanterns there's a witch that lives there. Nobody's thinking that you practice witchcraft, right? Like, they know that of anything, it makes your home more inviting on Halloween because they're like, oh, these people are celebrating. And so therefore we can probably, go about, knocking and trick-or-treating and all that kind of stuff. So I don't necessarily side with you if you're boycotting the holiday for those reasons of just sitting there and being like, it's a pagan holiday. I'm like, well, yeah, that's every holiday. I was like, yeah, there's lots of them. Anything you want to add on that?
No, I think that's good. Celebrate the holiday with ambivalence. That would be my suggestion. That's my 2 cents. And if you lean into it and you're a Jesus follower, that's fine. So maybe you found this whole discussion a waste of time. I don't know, but I figured we'd talk about Halloween. We didn't want to get into the whole Hallows Eve history, although Colton basically did a broad strokes of that. But yeah, just be mindful of it. I think it's something. It's fine to keep as a very superficial and I think childlike holiday, and just keep it like that. So we thank you for listening to this Halloween episode of the Go to Hell podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening to your podcasts so others can find us. And if you really love Halloween, well, you're definitely going to hell.
Ha!